The silence of a Toronto winter is heavy, but the silence of my sister's voice on the phone was heavier. She's gone, Diane. That was it. No preamble, no "I'm sorry to tell you this." My sister Glenda didn't even wait for me to process the words. Mom passed at 4 a.m. The facility said it was heart failure. Look, I've already handled the legalities. Since I have the power of attorney and the updated will Mom signed last month, I'll be taking over the Richmond Hill property and the investment portfolio. There's a blue envelope in the mail for you. It's a small payout. Consider it a gift from me. Don't call me. I'm busy with the estate sale. Click. I stood in my kitchen, the phone still pressed to my ear, watching the gray slush pile up on the driveway. To most people, I'm just Diane Harrison, a 64-year-old retiree. But my mind doesn't work like most people's. I am a retired forensic architect. My entire career was built on looking at solid structures, skyscrapers, bridges, luxury condos, and finding the hidden cracks that everyone else missed. I was the one they called when a building collapsed to find out exactly which bolt failed first. And right now, Glenda's story was a wall of crumbling brick. Our mother, Helen, was 85. She was a woman who did the Sunday New York Times crossword in pen and corrected my grammar over Sunday roast. 2 months ago, Glenda had suddenly moved her into the Willows, a high-end facility, claiming Mom had aggressive late-stage cognitive decline. I'd been barred from seeing her medical records because of a power of attorney Glenda had pushed through during a confused spell. But heart failure at 4 a.m. on a Tuesday without a single call from the head nurse? In my world, there is no such thing as a sudden collapse without a structural flaw. I didn't open the blue envelope. I grabbed my coat. I was going to find out exactly where my sister's story was rotting. I arrived at the Willows by 8 a.m. As an architect, I know how to navigate buildings. I didn't go to the front desk where the security guards were stationed. I went through the delivery bay, following a laundry cart up the service elevator. When I reached room 402, I prepared myself for an empty room, a sanitized space stripped of Mom's existence. Instead, I found the door slightly ajar. I pushed it open and saw a figure sitting by the window, silhouetted against the morning light. "Mom," I whispered. She didn't move at first. She looked frail, her white hair thin and wispy. But then I saw her fingers. They were tapping a rhythmic pattern on the arm of the chair. Long, short, long, long. It was a habit she had when she was thinking, a nervous tic she'd had since she was a school teacher. I walked around to face her. Her eyes were unfocused, looking right through me. For a moment my heart sank. Maybe Glenda was right. Maybe the structure had truly failed. But then, as soon as the hallway footsteps faded, Mom's eyes snapped to mine. They were as sharp as a laser. "Diane," she hissed, "check the tea." I looked at the bedside table. A cup of chamomile sat there, cold. I pulled a small sample vial from my purse, a habit from my days of testing concrete and soil. "What's in it, Mom?" "Vitamins," Glenda calls them, Mom whispered. "They make the world go gray. They make me sleepy. I've been spitting them into the silk plant for 3 days. She's coming back today with a man in a suit, a notary. She wants me to sign the deed to the Muskoka land." "She told me you were dead, Mom. She's throwing a funeral for you on Friday." Mom's jaw set into a line of steel. "Then we'd better make sure it's a show they never forget." I couldn't just take her out. Glenda held the POA. If I moved Mom, Glenda would call the police and have me arrested for kidnapping a vulnerable adult. I had to outbuild her. I spent the next 48 hours working like I was back on a high-pressure project. I called Marcus, a digital investigator I'd worked with on insurance fraud cases. "Marcus, I need a deep dive on Harrison Heights Realty," I told him. "Check the debt-to-equity ratio. Look for offshore transfers." 6 hours later, Marcus called back. "Diane, your sister isn't just stretching herself thin. She's in free fall. She took out a massive bridge loan for a waterfront development that's been stalled by environmental permits. She's $4 million in the hole. She doesn't just want Mom's money. She needs the land titles to use as collateral, or she's going to prison for bank fraud." Next, I went to see the facility director. "I'm also interested in the medical oversight of room 402, I said, leaning in. Dr. Arias seems to be prescribing heavy antipsychotics to a patient with no history of psychosis. That's a massive liability for this facility. If I find out there's a kickback scheme involved, this building won't be the only thing that collapses. The director's face turned the color of ash. He gave me exactly what I wanted, the visitor logs. Glenda had been visiting late at night, often bringing her own medications and legal witnesses. Thursday night, I snuck back into Mom's room. We didn't have much time. I brought a small, high-definition button camera, something I used to use for inspecting hard-to-reach crawl spaces. I pinned it to the curtain near Mom's chair. "She'll be here in an hour," Mom said. She looked tired, but the fire in her eyes was burning brighter than ever. "She thinks she's winning." "Diane, let her think it," I said. "Every story has a breaking point, Mom. We just have to apply the pressure." I hid in the large wardrobe in the corner. 10 minutes later, the door opened. I heard the click of Glenda's expensive heels. "Hi, Mommy." Glenda's voice was sickly sweet, the voice of a predator. "I brought your special tea, and my friend Mr. Henderson is here. He just needs you to sign one more little paper. It's for your protection." I'm so tired, Glenda." Mom played the part perfectly. Her voice was thin, drifting. "I know, honey. Just sign here and you can sleep as long as you want." I watched through the slots of the wardrobe as Glenda guided Mom's shaking hand toward a deed transfer. I recorded every second of it on my phone. The coercion, the way Glenda laughed when Mom confused the date, and the way Glenda whispered to the notary. "She'll be officially gone by Friday morning. Just backdate the signature." Friday was a crisp, clear day. The funeral was held at the Harrison family estate in Richmond Hill. Glenda had invited everyone, the developers, the local politicians, the elite of Toronto's real estate world. It was less of a memorial and more of a launch party for the Harrison Heights development. The garden was filled with white lilies. At the front, a polished mahogany casket sat under a canopy. Glenda stood at the podium, a black lace veil covering her face. She looked like the picture of a grieving daughter. "My mother, Helen, was a pillar of this community," Glenda sobbed into the microphone. "In her final days, she made it clear that she wanted her legacy to be one of progress. She entrusted me with the family estate to build something that would last for generations." I stood up from the back row. My voice, honed by years of shouting over construction equipment, cut through the crowd like a saw. "That's a beautiful speech, Glenda. It's a shame it's structurally unsound." The crowd turned. Glenda's eyes flashed with rage behind her veil. "Diane, how dare you interrupt this? You're clearly hysterical with grief." "I'm not grieving, Glenda. I'm auditing." I walked down the center aisle holding my phone. "I have a video I think the guests would find very interesting. It was taken last night. It shows Mom, who you claim died Tuesday, signing a deed transfer while you drugged her tea." "That's a lie. You're insane," Glenda shouted. "Then why's the casket empty?" I asked. I reached the front and shoved the lid of the casket. It swung open with a hollow thud. It was filled with nothing but bags of mulch to give it weight. The crowd erupted in whispers. Glenda's husband, Mike, tried to grab my arm, but I stepped back. "And if Mom is dead," I continued, pointing toward the driveway, "then who is that?" The black SUV pulled up. The doors opened, and out stepped my mother. She wasn't in a wheelchair. She wasn't confused. She was wearing her favorite crimson suit, her hair perfectly coiffed. Beside her was Robert Chen, our family lawyer, and 2 officers from the Financial Crimes Unit. Mom walked up the steps of her own porch and took the microphone from Glenda's hand. "The reports of my death have been greatly exaggerated," Mom said, her voice echoing across the lawn. "But the reports of my daughter's debt are quite accurate." Glenda collapsed onto the steps. The foundation she had built out of lies had finally reached its load-bearing limit. The aftermath was a total collapse for Glenda. The video I recorded, combined with Marcus's financial audit and Dr. Eris's immediate confession once the police showed him the kickback trail, made for an ironclad case. Glenda was charged with elder abuse, grand larceny, and probate fraud. Because she had attempted to declare a living person dead to the state, she faced additional federal charges for document tampering. She lost her license, her company, and her reputation. Mom didn't go back to the Willows. We fired the entire staff that Glenda had bribed and moved Mom back into the Richmond Hill house with a team of nurses we actually trusted. A month later, Mom and I sat on the back porch watching the sunset. "You know, Diane," Mom said, sipping a tea that I had brewed myself, "I always wondered if I'd raised you to be too clinical, too focused on the bolts and the beams. And now," she smiled, squeezing my hand, "now I realize that love needs a structure too. You knew how to look past the surface. You saw the cracks before the roof fell in." "I'm an architect, Mom. I know that a house can be rebuilt, but the foundation has to be honest." We sat in silence, watching the stars come out over the city. The Harrison estate was still standing, not as a luxury tower, but as a home. Glenda chose a bank balance over a mother's life, forgetting that a legacy built on betrayal has no foundation. But this isn't just my story, it's a warning. Elder abuse thrives in silence, and sometimes the people we trust the most are the ones pulling the bricks from the walls. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever witnessed a Glenda in your own family, or had a gut feeling that saved a loved one from a bad situation? Share your story in the comments below. If Diane's story moved you, hit the like button and subscribe for more stories of justice and truth. Don't let the cracks go unnoticed. Check on your loved ones today.